Good evening, everybody. Uneducated economist here. It never surprises me to learn how it is that these banks profit. They find every little loophole they can, and they use it to their advantage as much as possible. And this is I found this article in Bloomberg, and I found it earlier this morning, and I just read it this afternoon. But this is a really interesting one. So let's go back and talk about mortgage-backed securities. So if you're not familiar with the mortgage-backed security, if you can imagine when you sign the bottom line on a loan, that loan goes into a box with a whole bunch of other people's loans. And then investors can buy that box. That box is a mortgage-backed security. And when you pay back your mortgage along with everybody else, and the investor gets the benefit of getting their principal and interest back for it. Now, those mortgage-backed securities, that is kind of like the key to the interest rates and to the mortgage market. Because if those investors are not willing to buy those mortgage-backed securities, then the lenders are going to have a hard time selling those mortgages. So when you go to get a mortgage and you go to a lender, or it could be like a bank like Wells Fargo, or it can be like a private lender. And when you go to sign the bottom line, those guys are anticipating that they're going to be able to sell that mortgage into the mortgage-backed security market. Now, during the lockdown, we had an issue where these mortgage-backed securities, like, all of a sudden became kind of like the hot potato. Nobody wanted to touch them. Everybody was becoming unemployed. They were going to start going into delinquency on their mortgages, weren't going to be making their payments, and the investors really wouldn't want to hold on to these mortgage-backed securities. So the Federal Reserve stepped in and started buying these things up in like a dramatic pace and put the floor underneath the mortgage-backed securities. So they're just like bonds. If the prices start to drop, the interest rates will start to rise. So the Federal Reserve stepped in there and started buying these mortgage-backed securities to keep the price from dropping, so the interest rates would stay low. So that way people, when they go out to get a mortgage, they have a low interest rate and they can afford a more expensive home. So they were basically saving the housing market by doing this. Now, the government had also stepped in and says, hey, everybody can go into forbearance. If you have trouble making your payments, you can skip your payments for 90 days, 6 months, a year, whatever it was. And you can get this forbearance and there's no harm to you. But meanwhile, back in the banking system, there's still a lot of stuff that's taking place when you stop making your payments on your loans. One of these things is that you start triggering delinquencies within the banking system. And this kicks in rules and regulations that are not there unless you are delinquent on your loan. Okay, so when you take out a loan and you sell that thing when they sell that mortgage of yours in the mortgage-backed security off to an investor, there's a servicer who collects the mortgages. So when you make your payment, you're making your payment to the servicer, and they in turn are paying off the investor in the mortgage-backed security. Those people are mandated, not mandated, those guys are required to make the payment. The principal, the interest, pay the investor. What basically the people who are in forbearance are not making. Okay, they are not paying it in, but those people are. They're continuing on with the payment. Now, they're going to get reimbursed when these people start making their payment, but in the meantime, they're coming out of pocket with this payment to go into the mortgage-backed security investors. So, back here at the mortgage-backed security, there's a bunch of delinquent loans in there, and after 90 days, those things, according to Ginnie Mae, if these things are guaranteed by Ginnie Mae, those loans can be sold out of those mortgage-backed securities. And what the big banks are going in there and doing is they're going in and buying these things, and they're getting them at a discount. So if you can imagine a bond, is this like any other kind of loan out there? As the people are paying the loan off, you're getting a profit from it. So this thing has value to it, and you can sell it, right? You can sell it off into the market. Now, if you stop making your payment on that loan, or you say, hey, Ann, I'm gonna make the payment here in the next 6 months. I'll start making my payments again. That bond all of a sudden loses value. Like if you were making it like every month and you were doing it really well, and you're like, hey man, I promise again, then it has value up here. But if you say I'm gonna do it in 6 months, maybe, right? Then the value of it is way down here, even though really technically it should be here if you were making the payment. So these banks are going in and they're getting into those mortgage-backed securities, and they're buying all those bonds that are down here, all those mortgages. I'm sorry. All those loans that are down here that are undervalued, basically, and then they anticipate that they're going to be able to sell these things back into the market after people start coming out of the lockdown and going back to work, and the unemployment, starts to drop, and these people start going back to work and start making their payment, and they're going to make a profit at that time. Anyway, I found it a very interesting story. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Uneducated Economist. I'll leave links down in the description. You guys let me know.